Hello everybody, my name is Kara, and today I am here with the book chat on romantic subplots. Basically, I have some thoughts on the ways these are used and the way they are included and interpreted in genres that are not specifically romance novels. So I thought I would just kind of chat about some of the questions I've been thinking about and some opinions, but also some things that I'm not really sure of. And honestly, there are some things that I've kind of noticed or that I feel about romantic subplots or storylines that I don't really understand. They seem a little inconsistent even to me. So I thought I would share and see what you guys think. I do enjoy romantic storylines in books. As a whole, I guess I should say I'm not opposed to them. I know some people feel very strongly that if a book is not specifically set up as a romantic story, that it shouldn't have any romance because it detracts from the rest of the plot. And I personally feel like it can actually add quite a bit to the story. I feel like they are a really good way to explore characters and for the reader to get to know characters better. You know, seeing how they feel about other people in the book and seeing how they interact with each other and how that affects their personality and actions. I think that's really interesting, and this is not limited to romantic relationships. You can also see that with friendships or familial bonds or all of these other kinds of interactions. But I feel like romantic relationships as a sub kind of category of that, I think they can be really useful and interesting. I also think that it can actually add quite a bit of interesting dimension to the plot. I feel like some of my favorite things about reading books are seeing how the characters interact with each other and with the world, not necessarily the main plot itself. I kind of like that interpersonal dimension. I like seeing them get to know each other and how that kind of affects who they are and how they act in this other world. And finally, I also just feel like they can be fun. Like, there's something to get really excited about. I personally am a very emotional reader. If I'm enjoying a book, I probably have very strong feelings about it. It's kind of rare that I read a book that I enjoy, that I like and would recommend, but feel kind of detached from it, you know? Like, if I'm not kind of fangirling a little bit about it, I probably am not loving it as much as some of the other books I've read. So I do sometimes get really excited about relationships or ships in books. You know, I have some OTPs, I have some pairings of characters that just really speak to my heart and soul and that I get really excited about, even for books I read a long time ago. So I think that the kind of fun aspect of them is something that I don't discount, you know? It's nice to be able to talk about characters, and one way to do that is about how they get along romantically with each other. But I feel like there's also kind of a dark side or a negative side to that, because romantic relationships, at least for me, they really have the power to make or break a book. Like, I don't need them in every book I read. In fact, I really enjoy sometimes when books don't have any romance at all, but once you introduce that element into the story, it's like you better make it a really good romantic relationship, otherwise I'm probably not gonna like the book overall. Like, just off the top of my head, I can only think of two books that I have read where I really didn't like the central romantic relationship and I still really enjoyed the book overall. So I feel like for me personally, that just shows that once you introduce that kind of romance, it really has the power to take a book up to a favorite level or to make it just completely disappointing and I finish it and unhaul it immediately. I'm kind of leading into this next point, and I think this is something that a lot of people feel strongly about. I don't think authors should force a romantic relationship. Like, there's no reason to shoehorn it into a story where it doesn't need to be there. If your book is stronger without it, then don't put one in. And I think sometimes the way that we market books can affect that. You know, it can kind of make authors add that in because they think it's going to sell better with a certain demographic or something like that, and I think that's a disservice because the book could have been really amazing and just maybe it doesn't fit with that romantic relationship, and because of that, the whole book kind of feels not as good. Like, I remember when This Savage Song by by Victoria Schwab came out a couple years ago, and people were losing their minds because she said there was no romance in it, and it's kind of sad in a way that that is so unusual. So I feel like we do need more books that don't have romance in them, but we also just need to be more specific about which books can benefit from it, or which books it would be a fun addition or a good addition, and which ones it's better just to leave alone, because it shouldn't be that unusual that you read a book that doesn't have one. And I could do a whole nother video on the bad effects this can have, you know, like teaching especially younger readers that you need a romantic relationship to be happy, or that if somebody cares about you but not in a romantic way, they are somehow not as important. I also want to make it clear that this is not like calling out YA in particular, this video that I'm doing, because I have read some adult novels that had truly awful and completely unnecessary romantic subplots. Like Mr. Penumbra's 24-Hour Bookstore by Robin Sloan. That whole romantic relationship was a joke. Like, honestly, it read like some like middle-aged author's fantasy of what dating a woman would be like. So especially as I have read more books, I really started figuring out what I like from romantic relationships in books, or lack thereof. And something I've just decided, or I've realized, is that I like minimalistic ones. Like, even in novels that are almost built around a love story, I like it when there are bigger things going around the love story, where like the love story develops along with the main plot, you know? So I'm thinking of like Still Star-Crossed by Melinda Taub or Cotillion by Georgette Heyer. Those are two of my favorite like romance-centric kind of books. But even though in Still Star-Crossed, like the book's premise is based on like an arranged marriage kind of thing, that's not what most of the page time is spent on. But when you do get those romantic scenes, I think because they are still surrounded by plot, it feels like they're better developed. I don't know if that makes any sense at all. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? Where like, just the fact that you have other things happening at the same time as this love story, it's more exciting when you actually see the characters interact, because you know that there's all this interesting plot stuff going on. So when they do get a moment with each other, it's like, it's a treat, you know? I've also noticed something kind of funny about the summaries on books. If there's a romantic relationship and the character, like you can tell just from reading the back of the book which character is going to be the love interest, and specifically if they describe that character as like handsome and enigmatic, or like the like attractive yet stern, or something like that. Any like combination of those where clearly this person is good looking and they are interesting to the main character. I found that when I read that on the back of a book, 9 times out of 10, I don't enjoy the romance. I feel like it's not well developed enough. And I just started noticing this a couple years ago, and I didn't understand like how this could happen. I'm like, how could the way they describe it on the back of a book be an almost certain indication of how I feel about the love story? I had this idea about, like, is it because it sort of gets rid of the illusion that you don't know how the love story is going to turn out? Because I feel like in a lot of books, like, you can usually tell who the love interest is going to be. You know, you can kind of see it coming. So I was wondering if maybe seeing it almost spelled out on the back of a book, like seeing it signaled so clearly to the reader, is that what was making me not like those books? Is just because I had read the summary and I was like, well, now I can't even pretend to be excited or surprised when this love story happens because I see it coming the whole time. And I actually think that's not it. I think it's because it signals how much time and how much focus the love story is going to get. Like, if you're telling your reader from on the back of the book, like if it's taking up valuable space where you normally would also be describing the plot, and instead you tell me about how good looking this character is, I think that's sometimes an indication of how much weight the romance is going to have in the book when compared to the rest of the story. And this is again like not for romance novels, because obviously those books are built around a romance, so it makes sense that they would get a lot of time in the summary and in the book. But for other genres like fantasy or science fiction or anything like that, I really do feel like describing the love interest that extensively kind of signals that it's going to take up more space in the story than the rest of the plot. And that might be what some readers are looking for. I totally get that this is a personal preference thing, but for me personally, I just don't tend to like stories like that. It feels unrealistic to me, for one thing, because it's like the world is falling apart and yet we've already spent 60 pages on like this couple drama, you know? And I think part of that is also, like, if you warn me on the back that there's gonna be this instant attraction, a lot of times that means it's not going to be a slowly developing romance. You know, it's not necessarily insta-love, although a lot of times it is, I think, but it's just gonna be like too quick for me to get really invested and really excited about seeing it develop. And I think part of it is what I mentioned earlier, where it's just like, it's not as fun, like it's not as exciting, and it can get too much really quickly with absolutely no plot or like other character interactions to balance it out, it can really quickly start to feel like overdone or oversweet or just too much to me based on what I enjoy. And it's really funny to me because I love slow burn romances, like hate to love, like slow developments of feelings. That is my jam. I am a sucker for it. So it's really kind of funny to me that there's like that fine line between like I want it to be slow burn, but I don't want to be there for it all the time. You know, I want to know what else is going on too. I don't know if any of this video has made sense. Please let me know what you guys think about romantic subplots in books. Like, are there some genres where you enjoy them a lot more? Like, I love romantic like side stories in fantasy novels that take like a backseat to the main drama, but there's like that thread running through of like, oh, like these two characters are gonna have to work together and all of that. And I also really like them in historical fiction a lot of times. So basically, just let me know what you guys think about any of this. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree? What are your thoughts in romantic plot lines in books and how they are handled, or just any of this? I would love to know what you guys think. I find this super interesting to talk about. So thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you soon with another video, and I hope you love the next book you read. Bye!